So my speech is going to consist of problems with her definitions, and then I'm going to go into a counterplan, and then I'm going to respond to her arguments in the order that she makes them. So she says that banning animal testing, which is required by law, but she's yet to show you a document that says any testing is required. This gives me nothing to base my negative strategy on, and is bad for debate. Below, I cite the FDA website, and it says the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act does not require cosmetic products and ingredients to be approved by FDA before they go on the market, except for color additives that are not intended for use for coal tar hair dyes. Neither law nor FDA regulations require specific tests to demonstrate safety of individual products and ingredients. Rather, the FDA has consistently advised manufacturers whatever testing is necessary to ensure the safety of the products and ingredients. This means that there's the only testing that's actually required is color additives. And because none of her analysis was specific to color additives, she has a 0% risk of solvency coming out of her speech. And her definition of what's required testing or what required testing should be makes for a bad debate, because she pegs the negative in a hole that I basically have to argue color additives good, which is arbitrary and ignores the majority of animal testing going on in the status quo, which is bad for education. So in order to keep this debate going, I'm going to propose that the phrase testing that requires use of animals should be interpreted as any form of animal testing. This definition is preferable because it allows the debate to actually happen, and it provides the negative with a reasonable amount of ground, which is key to competitive equity. And it's an independent voter for fairness and competitive equity, because I had to waste time in my speech setting up a good debate where the negative is actually has ground and she has a risk of solvency, which really should be the job of the proposition. And it's nearly impossible to weigh impacts because I don't know what she's defending. So right now she's in a double bind. If she wants to stick to her definition, she gets 0% risk of solvency. If she wants to choose my definition, she gets voted down for setting up a bad debate. Also, the failure to define what an animal means, it means that her alternative can be classified as animal testing. Cells are a part of animal or human body, and testing on animal body parts should be considered animal testing. This provides an unclear debate because she doesn't define exactly what she's defending, especially considering that humans are a part of the kingdom Animalia, so for all intents and purposes, they're defined as animals. So my counterplan would be to ban animal testing, except testing on animals that's intended for furthering medical advancements on other animals of the same species. This avoids her arguments about trans-species inaccuracies, and it's more ethical because it doesn't have humans exploiting animals for their own good. And then if she decides that she actually does want to ban animal testing and thinks that animal testing for human use is unethical because of it's ineffective, then what would happen to animals that aren't being tested on for their own sake? We'd have to use animal testing to treat or we'd have to use humans to treat animal diseases, and if trans-species applications are so bad, it would probably cause mass death within the human or animal community rather. And so this presents her with another double bind. Either she thinks that mass death among animals is just as unethical as mass death among humans, and so you should vote for the counterplan to avoid that, or she thinks that mass death among animals is preferable, in which case you can vote for the status quo. And now on to responses to her specific arguments. So she says banning animal testing prevents suffering and needless death. But sometimes sacrifice must be made in order for the greater good. Animal testing is justified when it saves more living organisms than it harms. So animal testing is key to curing like most diseases from cancer to AIDS, and long-term benefits outweigh the short-term harms, and it makes it the most ethical. So if you look at my Epstein evidence that I cite below, he quotes Nobel laureate Joseph Murray when he says animal experimentation has been essential to the development of all cardiac surgery, transplantation surgery, joint replacements, and all vaccinations. So it is effective. And the majority of the examples that she gives are things that wouldn't be banned because they're, with her plan, because they're not required by the federal government to be tested on animals anyway, especially cosmetics. And she says it's much less effective. I have 3 points on this. First, the counterplan solves only species-specific testing means the most accurate results. And 2, her alternatives aren't effective either, and I'll explain that in my next point. And then 3, testing isn't limited to animals like she says it would be. All of those drugs that like penicillin and stuff like that did come about independently of animal testing, while animal testing was still an option. That shows that that the existence of animal testing doesn't corrupt medicine. And so on to her alternatives. They're ineffective. If an animal is not a good model organism for a human, cells or synthetic skin probably would be worse because they're not within the context of a living organism, so they would behave differently. She says testing options have proven just as effective as animal testing, so that means that they're ineffective. And any effectiveness that they do have is because of it's concurrent with animal testing. Alternatives are probably just a preliminary step before animals get tested on. So testing would still be necessary. And there's no reason that alternatives can't be used alongside if they're so good. But we need certain testing on animals. And finally, she suggested that we should just have humans elect to do this, but they'd most likely get some sort of compensation or else there's no incentive. So she's ignoring the implicit structural harms that dictate which groups of people occupy which socioeconomic class. It means that those most likely to undergo this kind of testing are the ethnic minorities. So is it free choice if it's coerced? She's just displacing the terrible testing onto the undesirable human population, which doesn't seem very ethical. And for all these reasons, I am proud to oppose.